have a question for Scott. You talked about the guest as like I guess an ethnographic practice. And I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more about how you see that as different than a more like a participant observation. Like, because I just thought it was an interesting phrase, like I enter as a guest instead of I guess, do you differentiate that from like a participant observation or, yeah?
Yeah, I guess my thought was, and I had too many slides to talk about what I wanted to talk about, but my notion was that when we think of a guest, I think we're traditionally, like a lot of the ethnography right now that's happening in collaboration, the stuff that's happening at Berkeley, it focuses on, state level actors who have high social class. And what I find interesting about studying theme parks, we would still say they're middle class spaces, but I guess my notion with guests is that in doing some of the observations I did, having worked at the theme park, you see a different side of the space. So on the one hand, you're getting that classic EMIC insider's perspective by interacting with guests, and I think on the other hand, you're seeing a side different than say what the critic sees. Like if you read Ada Louise Huxtable's Unreal America, she just assumes that every person who visits Disney or any theme space, is duped. They're a robot. They're part of a consumerist machine. And I guess for me, using the guest as a location allows me to break down that traditional criticism from the ethnographic side and bring it back more to that focus on the insider's view and the notion of the informant, and the informant being someone who has certain pleasures or perspectives. And if we're doing too much of the critical side, then we're in a sense violating that principle of ethnography where you think about the predominance of the informant's view. So for me, I guess it problematizes the whole aspect of doing ethnography, and it probably takes me to this notion of looking at complicity, including the complicity of the guest and the complicity of the ethnographer in this system of the theme park and its spaces.
Yeah.
I just put a slide up there that shows you know about the critical.
Great.
That's that actually it was from Gina Arnold,
Wow.
and she was trying to trash Great America, the theme park, but she couldn't resist the drive-by shooting of Disney on the way. And I brought that in because there is this, I don't want to use the word elitist because everybody uses it. I just think there is, I don't know, maybe I just reserve maybe the way of defining it to another time, but the point is they're missing the point, sadly, because they do have a legitimate anxiety about homogenization. We're not really on a different team here. But the way they pump it up to the edge that people don't know reality, the average person coming into a theme park, how many people are waiting for biopsy results to go to a theme park? How many are war veterans? How many grandparents think this might be my last trip to Disneyland with my kids? People aren't having trouble with reality. They understand reality. At Disneyland, there's one day they can go. They don't have to deal with it very much. So I think one really has to start empathizing and sympathizing with the emotional life of the people who attend.
So, with that in mind, what about certain stereotypes that have maybe evolved? So I went to Disneyland as a child and loved it and had a great time and didn't think about it critically. And then, like 2 years ago, I went again with my sister and her 3 kids. And so I was Auntie Krista going around Disneyland, and we went like on the jungle ride, and of course now I'm seeing that you have the quote native peoples like climbing trees right along with the animals, and like the way they're portrayed is not that respectful. Or like in the Pirates of the Caribbean, there's that one pirate chasing the woman around in a circle with her dress.
They changed that.
Did they?
It's still kind of heteronormative.
Yeah.
So would it be different now that hopefully some of our perceptions have evolved, or is that just sort of like a quaint thing, like Main Street? And I'm not addressing this to anyone.
When you say
in
our
particular.
perceptions, who are you talking about?
Well, hopefully society's views have improved. that we don't see like native peoples who live where there are alligators and whatnot. I mean, of course there are alligators in Florida too, but like the scene that's portrayed in the Jungle Ride, hopefully we don't see the people who live in the jungle as animals. Hopefully we respect them as human beings.
So I think that gets at something that I noticed in both Scott and Larry's presentations, which is the notion of temporality in the theme park. I guess Disney, at least as Larry was suggesting it, lacks a present. It has a temporality of the future and the past. So there's a sense of like the lack of maybe a cultural sensitivity to questions like that, because they're producing something that isn't necessarily embedded within like the cultural logic of the present. But at the same time, I kind of wanted to ask Larry how he thought that the permeation of this conception of time, this lack of present, kind of affected American and global conceptions of time and like other theme spaces. Do you think that as a result of Disney kind of being the origin of the genealogy that you're presenting of theme spaces, maybe like a present is something that's lacked in theme spaces generally?
Well, I don't think you can make that broad a statement, because when we say theme spaces, we're taking a huge universe. So you probably want to segment that a little bit. So I think if you refocused on the story-based theme park, yeah, we could go. Then we could start.
Yeah.
We could start because then you'd have to. You know, we have museums and interpretive centers who are highly themed for interpreters. You know. But I don't know, the question is, does that get outside the park? Does it embed itself in people's perceptions? Because it's like, it's a one-day experience.
Right.
And whereas all the social structures like school and all types of activities impose a normal structure throughout the rest of the time. So I don't know if it travels that far. I think it's legitimate. I mean, you go to a theater, and you know it's fake too. I mean, there's costumes, the people in Lion's King, that's not a real lion. And we just, suspension of disbelief, you know, is what we're about on that.
Is there another panel?
There's another panel which will be coming in shortly.
So.
And to Chris's question, I didn't get a chance to talk about it, but when I did this, and I signed a non-disclosure agreement, but when I did this gig for Disney Imagineering and Pixar, it was interesting. They brought in two cultural anthropologists, and they said, we want you guys to be the person to tell us if we're getting it right. And the curious thing was that they were taking a lot of shortcuts, and by the end of the event, the all-day event, I sort of felt like the two anthropologists had to take a back seat, because bringing in some of those critiques or some of these concerns about that level of nuance and detail, again, they were interested in the money shot in a lot of cases. And so, in that context, again, doing the ethnographic, I kind of realized, like, all right, well, I can't be a critic in those moments. And I don't think they would design that same level of, the Jungle Cruise today, or even that level of heteronormativity in Pirates of the Caribbean. But again, those rides have a temporality to them. They're classic, they're nostalgic. I love visiting them because I feel like they do kind of take you back in time in that nostalgic sense. So, and nostalgia is memory with the pain removed. So I guess that kind of defines it too. So, but yeah.
Well,
I guess we have to.
I think that we should probably wrap up because people are trying to come in from both doors, but thank both of you for coming.
Yeah.